Carmine said, "Fun boy?" And here are two. Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate stopping on by. This time I'm coming at you for another one of my famed movie slash Blu-ray reviews. Today I'll be reviewing the movie and the Blu-ray of the motion picture by the name of The Freshman. So first I'll be talking about the movie, then I'll talk about this still kind of relatively recently released Blu-ray that I think was released possibly late last year, early this year of 2021 by Mill Creek in North America. I don't know if this is on Blu. I think this might be the first time in North America this movie's on Blu-ray, which is kind of a shame. We'll talk about why it's a shame when I get on to my review portion of this video. I'll be talking about the motion picture itself first. My history with The Freshman goes all the way back to basically, I think, the spring and summer of 1991, when it was probably still relatively new on home video. This poster right here that I got from a video store back probably in 1991 was actually a video store poster. I don't know what about this movie really interested me. Maybe just my dad rented it, my mom rented it, I don't know. I think maybe my mom saw it maybe and she turned me on to it or something like that. Obviously, having seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off in the drive-in theater as a child, you know, as a kid and stuff and as a teenager at the time, I still liked Matthew Broderick, and at the time I was all getting into the Godfather movies as a 14-year-old and thinking that the Godfather movies were something that was worth getting into, which now, you know, I think personally right now the Godfather movies are kind of like the most overrated trilogy, one of the most overrated trilogies of all time. But at the time I was kind of getting into the Godfather movies, mostly the first one, and was very aware of Marlon Brando obviously from that movie. It's really funny how a lot of times when I was a kid I'd just be getting into things right around the time that they'd be putting out a new movie that was kind of very relevant to the thing I was just getting into. It was just weird, and The Freshman is a perfect example of that, where I was just getting into the movie The Godfather probably in 1990 or 1991, and then for the first time apparently in like 10 years Marlon Brando would return to the screen in 1990. This film was released in 1990 in a movie starring with Matthew Broderick in The Freshman. So my history, as I was trying to say, I don't know if I really said much about it, is I didn't see this in the theater or anything like that. I saw it after the fact on home video when it was relatively new on home video and VHS in 1991. And you know, being a Columbia TriStar release, it wasn't copy protected. I don't think I ever ran across a Columbia TriStar release in my days of pirating VHS tapes and making dubs of them from VHS rentals that was ever copy protected. So if a movie was Columbia TriStar, you were in good, and you had two VCRs, you were in good shape, which meant you could rent the movie from the video store, and if you liked it, you could then own it yourself, if you know what I mean. So basically I owned, I kind of basically owned this from, you know, henceforth, if you will, from after the time we rented it and watched it, liking enough to quote-unquote own it for free, owning two VCRs, if you know what I mean. And it was something that I kind of watched throughout the summer of 1991. It was kind of a fun movie. One thing I don't want to forget to mention is the absolutely, first off the bat when the movie starts, one of the things you're most aware of first is the absolutely phenomenal score by David Newman. You know, the score is one of the first things you're introduced to when this movie starts. And, you know, this movie, it should also be said that this movie's rated PG, so it's really kind of a rarity, and it's really kind of fun in that aspect where it's very accessible to any old age back in 1990, 1991 and stuff in the subsequent years. But being PG, you kind of got to love it that it's actually PG. That doesn't mean there aren't some swear words in there, of course, and some innuendo talk and this and that, and very, you know, braless Penelope Ann Miller in a tank top or whatever the hell she's wearing in that one scene or whatever, and all this and that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously they still fit that kind of stuff into even PG or even G-rated movies and stuff, but like cartoons namely and stuff. But as I was trying to say, the film score by David Newman is absolutely just wonderfully upbeat, really just fun, and just really complements this movie amazingly, and it's really fun. So basically the premise of this movie is Matthew Broderick plays a freshman in college. He's going to, I think, New York to go to film school. This hack, this Fleabur guy hack, you know, film teacher is kind of a laughing gag throughout the movie, maybe in 2 or 3 or 4 separate showing, you know, that guy shows up maybe 2 or 3 or 4 separate times, and he's just kind of a hack, kind of a film school teacher, if you will, who worships, you know, Godfather 2 and all this and that. So he's from Vermont, and he's going to New York to go to film school and stuff. And incidentally, this is also the first movie that introduced me, probably, and a lot of other people, to Frank Whaley. Frank Whaley is Matthew Broderick's roommate in this film school class in New York City. And basically, right, you know, being from Vermont and not from the big city, right when Matthew Broderick gets to the city, he instantly meets up with this character played by Bruno Kirby, I want to say, and where he's basically, all of his things are stolen, like within, you know, 19 or so, you know, 20 minutes of just being there. His money, his suitcase, everything he brought to New York. And basically, later on, he ends up coming across this guy, and this guy is he ends up seeing him on the street and chases him down. And it's kind of funny because he, you know, the guy who took his stuff pretends to be like Mexican and no inglés and shit like that, and it's really kind of funny. One thing I do want to say about this movie is, unlike, you know, a lot of your corporate comedies that would come out even before this, but a lot more after this movie came out, I really do like this film's sense of humor and sensibility. I do feel like it's got a humanity and a soul, and an actual, you know, it doesn't feel like just a, you know, cookie cutter corporate comedy that's just, you know, made by the corporate whatever, or AI, just freaking corporate comedy, AI made freaking just nasty humor movie. It's a PG rated comedy that's actually got some heart and humanity and a soul to it, and the music really helps that out too. Matthew Broderick comes across this guy, and this guy ends up, you know, he basically blew all of Matthew Broderick's money on betting and stuff like that. So Matthew Broderick's like ready to take him to the, you know, turn him into the cops or whatever, and the conniving guy kind of says, well, wait a second, let me introduce you to my whatever he is. Is it his uncle? I might be able to get some work for you with my uncle, and, you know, he's gonna have a lot of money for very relatively simple jobs. So he ends up taking him to meet his uncle, which is, I want to say the character's name, Marlon Brando's character's name is Carmine Sabatini or something like this in this movie. He's like this Italian importer, and obviously it's, you know, it's 10 years after Marlon Brando's last movie. It's kind of a big deal in 1990. Obviously it's really kind of funny because he's like parodying himself in the movie The Godfather, which is really kind of interesting, you know. And it's just like, at the time when I saw this, being 14 and just getting into The Godfather at the same time, it was just like kind of funny and stuff like that. It's funny how when you're 14 and younger and stuff, it's like you don't really see necessarily, when you're watching movies, you don't really see people's, I mean, ages per se. I can look at the, you know, the Star Trek movies from the 80s with the original crew in them now, and I look at them, especially, you know, some of the older ones, 4, 5, and 6, I'm like, God, they're old. But when I watched them as a kid, I just saw, you know, all those main characters as their characters and heard their voices, and I didn't really see their age. But as, you know, it's funny because they should be getting younger as I, you know, get older, but it's like, as being older, some characters look older. It's just really weird, your perceptions, and as they change as you age and stuff. But basically, Marlon Brando is kind of portraying, in a way, the same kind of character that he played in the Godfather film, which was kind of funny, being this importer, this Italian importer, who more and more, as we learn more and more about him, you know, seems to be a man of, you know, stature in the community and power. And he's got, the more we learn about him, the more overreaching power he seems to have, almost like he's the, you know, freaking, you know, just governor of the state, you know, by proxy or without, you know, it being said or whatever. It's just kind of funny. But, you know, he basically, you know, what could obviously, I mean, it's not like I'm a Marlon Brando fan per se or anything like that, but, you know, the performance he does as this guy, this Italian importer who has a strong resemblance to the character of The Godfather. And it's funny because Matthew Broderick's character says that, and, you know, it's even alluded to in the movie, you know, and Frank Whaley will later say it and all this kind of stuff. So it's really kind of funny in that regard. But this guy ends up kind of very quietly, nonchalantly kind of pressuring Matthew Broderick character into taking this job. I think getting $500 just to basically deliver, you know, the package from one place to another. And what ends up happening, you know, this lizard the opening credits, the first thing you see is this egg hatch and this lizard come out of the egg. And this movie, I'd say maybe halfway point, you know, the first half of this movie is in a lot of ways kind of, well, I mean, the whole thing is dedicated or about the lizard, I guess, if you really want to talk about it. But later on, I don't know, somewhere around the, you know, a third into the movie or something like that, the two characters, Frank Whaley and Matthew Broderick character, will go and do this mystery, and they don't know what this package is that he's going to be, you know, picking up and delivering, and much to their dismay when they get to wherever, the package place or whatever, they're picking up this kimono dragon, which is this really huge kind of, if you've seen a salamander, you know what that is. It's just kind of a lot of these lizards kind of look the same, but it's a really big one. It's not like a small one like that character from the Terminator had, you know, that she had scampering all over her bookshelves and that. It's you know, something like that, except it's like, you know, exponentially bigger, almost like a midget crocodile or something like that. So this kimono dragon is the delivery that he's supposed to, this package that he's supposed to pick up and deliver to this one place, and this whole thing is like shrouded in mystery. And a big part of the movie's, I guess, charm and comedy revolves around this scene where Frank Whaley and Matthew Broderick pick up the kimono dragon and all the trials and tribulations to transporting this animal just as is, just, you know, basically with a leash around its frickin', you know, upper arms and chest area and stuff like that, to kind of, you know, just put it in the back seat of this sedan DeVille and try to deliver it to this place that ends up puking in the back seat. We don't see that, it's just spoken, reeled in dialogue. It ends up puking in the back seat, so they stop at a gas station to wash, you know, the back seat out. And while the door is open and Frank Whaley is very intelligently and smartly having a smoke there right at the gas pump, the kimono dragon proceeds to run out and run into the mall. And there's this kind of funny scene where the thing is, the dragon is scared. It's funny how when this thing starts running, it's like, holy crap, that thing can move. But it's scurrying around the mall and scaring patrons and kids in the little floaty pool area and all this and that. So one of the movie's, I guess, maybe centerpieces is this scene where the kimono dragon pickup and, you know, havoc, you know, after pickup and before delivery scene and all this and that. And that's kind of fun, and the music and all this and that. And he ends up, you know, catching it again and delivering it to this guy. And Maximilian Schell actually has a small part in this movie as well. And he's the guy that they're delivering the kimono dragon to. I think at the time that I saw this in 1991, the only thing I'd really seen Maximilian Schell in at the time was The Black Hole. It's a movie that I still love to this day and hold in very high regard. And it should also be said, I kind of skipped over this part where, you know, before they do the delivery thing, Matthew Broderick character goes to the Carmine's house to, I don't know what, pick up the keys to the car, or pick up the car or something like that. And at this point he meets the Carmine Sammartini, or Marlon Brando's character's daughter, played by, and this is probably the first time I'd ever really seen Penelope Ann Miller as well, or at least, no, I take that back. I saw her in Adventures in Babysitting when I saw that in the theater with my mom, but in a more, I guess, in a bigger role. This is the first time I'd really seen, or can remember having any kind of, because in Adventures in Babysitting she's kind of played as a nerd, so she wasn't necessarily played as a attractive female character, whereas this, she's definitely played as more of an attractive female character. And I don't know what the hell hair color she is naturally, but I definitely like Penelope Ann Miller as more of a brunette as she appears in this movie. She's relatively attractive and cute in this movie. And at the time I thought so, and having just recently rewatched it again, I still think so. It's particularly being so much older now than she is in this movie. She's getting cuter and cuter every year. But basically, this whole movie is just about how Matthew Broderick's character just comes in and just ends up landing into the lap of this kind of goofy-ass, eccentric kind of family. And when he goes to visit, you know, his house, Carmine Sammartini's house, and meeting his daughter, who gets in a very forward way, just gets kind of, you know, starts touching his leg and gets very flirtatious and close and stuff like that. And by the end of the visit, I think she kisses him on the lips, which is just kind of extremely forward and whatever. And also coming across a picture of the Mona Lisa in the living room and being wowed how amazing the duplicate job of the painting is. And she's like, oh, or the copying job, I think is the line he used. And she's like, that's not a copy, this is it. And he's like, yeah, right. And she's like, I'm serious. Remember that back when and whenever the the Mona Lisa toured the country or whatever? Well, the copy went back and the real one stayed here. And it's just kind of like, and then the line is, and it's safe in Queens. And she's like, Clark. His name's Matthew Broderick's name is Clark Kellogg. It's like, people don't steal things from my father. It's kind of funny how if you really did have the Mona Lisa, you probably wouldn't want to have it in your living room where the natural sunlight can come in the window and just ruin it, shine on the painting or whatever. But it's a movie, whatever. But when he goes to the house, him and the audience, well, the audience more so because I don't think the audience sees that guy with the gun. That's kind of hides whenever he arrives and leaves with a sandwich that's perched above the door and stuff like that. So when he goes to visit the house to get, I guess, pick up the car and the keys or whatever to pick up the package and deliver it, is when the audience is keyed more into, wow, this is an amazing house, and he's got the original Mona Lisa, and he's got these armed guards and stuff. So this guy is must be really powerful, and his daughter is just getting all forward and just like basically kind of adopts. I mean, they just basically kind of just adopt Clark Kellogg, which is Matthew Broderick's character, almost as if he's like just a stray puppy or something. It's almost like this family just kind of adopts him. And before I move on to the story, there's one funny plot point where Marlon Brando's character's like sister comes down with a headache or whatever, and she's like, I'm gonna take some aspirin and watch Jeopardy or something like that. And what's so funny about it, I don't think I noticed it when I was a teenager, but having seen it when I'm now older, it's like the voice of Marlon Brando's sister is, I think it's a real woman. I hope it's not Marlon Brando in drag, but I think the voice of his sister in this movie, which is this older Italian woman who's got a headache in this movie, I think it's Marlon Brando's voice, pitched up, which is kind of funny. Like I say, I hope the woman is not him in drag. I don't think he'd do that, but it's kind of funny that it's most likely Marlon Brando's voice pitched up to, presented as his, sister's voice in the movie, which is kind of funny. So after they make the delivery of the Komodo dragon to this place, it's kind of a mystery. They don't really think too much of it. The Maximilian Schell character and everyone at this place that he's delivering this Komodo dragon to just seems weird. I mean, everyone that has anything to do with this Carmine Sabatini seems to be just weird, kind of eccentric characters and stuff like that. But he got paid $500, so I don't think he's really worried about it too much. But basically then, not long after, we're introduced to this character. And it's funny how much this actor by the name of, I don't know what the hell his name is. It's Joe Polito, or I don't know how to pronounce it, but this fat guy who was in a lot of movies at this time, and a lot of movies that I was seeing at this time, like namely Miller's Crossing, The Freshman, and Rocketeer, to name a few, all around this exact same time frame. It's funny how, because at the time, obviously, in the summer of '91, I was seeing and a huge fan of the movie Rocketeer, and I think I also discovered Miller's Crossing that summer. So that summer is like I saw like minimum of 3 of all these different movies with the same actor in it. This guy who was a lot more thinner in the movie Chud, but went on to get cast in more parts as kind of like the balding, goofy ass, heavier set guy with that raspy ass voice, and the guy he played Bigelow in The Rocketeer. This guy, along with the coroner from Jason Goes to Hell, appear to be these guys that are working in cahoots with Matthew Broderick's stepdad, who's this animal rights activist, and he gets a hold of the fact that, and his mom finds out that once he called home and revealed to his mom that he's, delivered this Komodo dragon, she looks up in the good old days of the '90s where she's looking in a book, versus the internet, where she's looking in a book and looks up Komodo dragon only to find out it's endangered species. And once Clark's Matthew Broderick's dad hears of this, he's like, oh my god, and contacts these two, which I guess are pretty much in the movie until the end regarded as federal agents or something like that. Joe Polito and however the hell you say his name, and the coroner who would go on to be or the guy who would go on to be the coroner in Jason Goes to Hell. That's kind of the midway point of the movie, where the movie takes a little bit of a turn, and then where it kind of becomes sour between Matthew Broderick and Marlon Brando as he's he's like, oh my God, you told me the work you were going to have me do is legitimate. Now you're having me transport, endangered species. And at this point, Marlon Brando, like, I think that this is the scene where he, like, he's got a really good brainwashing capabilities to just, like, keep him just, it's kind of like, I don't know, even though the Matthew Broderick character is getting a little uptight and worried about, the company he's keeping and the things he's transporting and stuff, it's like, the Marlon Brando character has such a smooth way about him where he can just, like, talk him into anything, or, talk him into keeping him on as a delivery boy or whatever. And there's this famous scene where it's kind of, I think it happens right before this scene or right after this moment here, where he, like, the famous moment where he, like, in a very, very Italian way, kisses Matthew Broderick full on the lips and is just like, oh, I love you, my boy, and all this and that, and, in this Italian whatever. After that, the other guy, the Bruno Kirby character, is like, oh my God, you're in for life now. And then like, the next time he sees a Penelope, and they give him, like, a Mercedes-Benz, and next thing he goes and picks up Penelope Ann Miller character from her, her Catholic frickin' high school or college or whatever the hell she's going to. She's like, yeah, we've just been talking. I think this is the second scene Matthew Broderick's seen this character, and she's like, yeah, I've been talking to this guy about our music for our wedding, and it's just like the whole company of all these people, and this Marlon Brando character, and all the company he keeps are all these goofy ass people that are just throwing this Matthew Broderick character for a loop. And the second half of the movie is basically where Matthew Broderick's, like, trying to decide whether to just frickin' leave the country or just, go on with this goofy thing, which is basically he ends up getting chased and caught by these two federal agent guys. It's the guy from Rocketeer and the coroner from Jason Goes to Hell, and Bigelow from Rocketeer, and he basically informs them that the Carmine Sabatini is this, he buys endangered species and runs this really highfalutin, like, restaurant thing that's a movable feast that's never in the same place twice, where the rich, affluent people can go eat endangered species for up to, I don't know, $500,000 a plate. The more endangered the species, the more high, cost it is to eat this stuff. So this is the, how in comedies and kids movies where they always have, like, the, 2/4 of the way through the movie, it's always like the downer moment, where it's like, if you got a rom-com or romantic comedy or something, it's always going to be the moment where there's a rift in the relationship and the depressing moment, only to come around and be a happy ending again. This is the point of the movie where that takes place. And I guess, my effort to try to not do beat by beats these days isn't really working out very well, as I have an obsessive personality, but whatever. When I'm kind of more passionate or excited or kind of like a movie, or it's been a part of my childhood and stuff, or teen years, it's kind of hard to just not keep blabbing about it, as you can see. So the last half of the movie, or I guess the last quarter of the movie, is just Clark trying to deal with this situation, getting this info from these two apparent federal agents about, this guy's conniving, business of charging, so much money, $500,000 per plate, to carve up and, cook up and serve endangered species and stuff. So I guess, since I blabbed too much as it is, I won't. And if anyone watches this review and hasn't seen the movie, I guess I won't spoil the ending. I'll just say that obviously that's a happy ending, which the whole movie has this kind of twist thing, and the twist obviously is revealed at the end of the movie, and all this and that. And it's revealed that, well, I won't even reveal that either, but I'll just basically leave it at that. Give you the first half of the movie, and just, I guess I kind of ruined stuff by, well, I mean, obviously it's going to be a happy ending or whatever, but I would give The Freshman, I guess we'll just go, we'll go 3 1/4 stars out of 4 stars for The Freshman. I think it's a movie that's been a part of my life ever since I was 14 years old, and something I can remember watching a decent amount in the summer of '91, and it was fun to go see, this Joe Polito, or however the hell you say his name, in the theater, in the Rocketeer, and then at home I could watch him in Miller's Crossing and The Freshman and this and that and stuff like that. But it's definitely a movie that, just because of the time and place it came into my life and stuff, it kind of holds a relatively, I don't know, so I'm just trying to say, kind of special to me, I guess. As you can see, I got the poster 30 years ago and still have it, and I'm pretty sure I had the VHS at some point. I don't know for the life of me if at some point I the more I think about it, the more I think that I may have, like, at some point foolishly sold like maybe a bag of VHS tapes to Half Price Books a long time ago, because I used to have the VHS of this, and chances are it's sold, I don't know. But one thing that I do still have is this that I ended up getting at half price for $3 in the clearance bin. This is just the original DVD that came out in 1998, and it's got widescreen on one side and full screen on the other, and just your basic DVD like a year into DVD's life. Kind of a bummer that, you know, I may no longer have the VHS, but I guess that's all, you know, that's what life, you know, what can happen in life. You know, sometimes things at the time aren't as important to you as they might become, you know, in the future or whatever, but you can never predict these kinds of things. After all, on to my review of the more kind of still recently released Blu-ray of The Freshman, which I think was released early this year in 2021 by Mill Creek. I want to say that, I'm not 100% sure, but I do want to say that this is the very first time in North America this movie's been on Blu-ray, and I was really excited when this was announced in late 2020 for it to be released on Mill Creek Blu-ray, because as you may or may not know, I've gotten a lot of, you know, a decent amount of Mill Creek Blu-rays in recent years, and done a lot of reviews on them, and been very impressed with the quality, you know, both the film, or, you know, mostly the, you know, the visual quality, but also the audio quality of the Blu-rays that they've been putting out. So I was really excited when this movie was announced for Mill Creek Blu-ray, and then when I, you know, it came out, and before I got a hold of, you know, before I got a hold of it, and I saw the review on Blu-ray.com, I was like, oh man, but maybe they're being hard on it. Unfortunately, they really weren't. This is probably the worst quality Mill Creek Blu-ray that I've seen thus far, with an image quality that really makes you wonder, you know, which has a better image quality, the Mill Creek Blu-ray or the original DVD from 1998 by, you know, Columbia TriStar Home Video. I'm probably going to stop watching the Blu-ray, to be perfectly honest, and, you know, every time I watch this movie, maybe watch this. I would imagine this would have probably better sound, better stereo, you know, more authentic sound probably than the DVD, or the Blu-ray rather, and who knows, maybe even the image quality is better on this as well. Wish I could report better news for the video quality of the Blu-ray presentation of Mill Creek's, you know, Blu-ray release of The Freshman. I guess this kind of Blu-ray presentation is what I expect from Mill Creek. So all the other Blu-rays that I got that led up to this one were just completely like surprises, like, you know, surprise after surprise after surprise. Unfortunately, they're living up to more of the reputation with this particular Blu-ray release of The Freshman. It looks like, I mean, it might even, you know, it looks like it's basically, it looks like the DVD is basically just put on a Blu-ray, is what it looks like. So it's really, you know, if I would probably recommend, even just if you can get like on eBay or something like that, if you can just get this or something cheaper, maybe I'd recommend this before that, but it's up to you. Chances are a lot of people aren't going to be interested in this movie. A lot of people who watch my reviews probably aren't going to be interested in it in either way, so it doesn't really matter. But is kind of unfortunate what the kind of treatment The Freshman got on, you know, its debut Blu-ray presentation in North America. One thing I do like about the release is, just like so many of their Blu-ray releases, their kind of retro packaging, making it look like the VHS, with video store stickers on there, PG and staff pick and all this and that. VHS Blu-ray packaging, which makes so much sense. There's the back as well. Got a VHS sticking out there, which makes so much sense. I think this, I don't remember no longer having the VHS. I don't remember if that's what the back of the VHS looked like or not. And then pulling the slipcover off the Blu-ray case, I just have to laugh because I can see this face on this little screen I'm looking at. And, you know, you do have to wonder what Mill Creek was thinking with this cover art that's actually on the Blu-ray, you know, cover art itself when you pull the slipcover off. I'm not exactly sure where the hell this artwork even comes from. It looks like someone who can't see designed the cover or something like that. I really don't know. I can honestly say that this cover here that's underneath the slipcover leaves, I usually say a little to be desired, but it's more like a whole hell of a lot to be desired. I'm not exactly sure you'd ever really want to be looking at this cover. Back cover though is a lot better there with this kind of endearing, you know, classic shot of just the Marlon Brando character, just pretty classy shot of him, and just a little 3 shots of goings on and this and that or whatever. So the back cover is much more agreeable than the front cover once you take the slip cover off. If I was designing this release, this is exactly the image I would put on the disc, so I completely 100% agree with and back that decision to put that artwork on the disc. That's the classic artwork for this movie, and well, the home video release anyway. I don't know what the actual theatrical poster looked like. And here is the now 30-year-old home video poster from North America. We've got on the bottom corner here RCA, Columbia Pictures home video. On the bottom, now available on video cassette and laser disc. Copyright 1990. I can only assume that since it says copyright 1990 Columbia Pictures home video, that maybe this came out late on home video late in 1990, but I don't think I remember seeing it, seeing the actual movie itself until the spring or summer of 1991. As I was thinking about, reviewing this movie and this Blu-ray, it occurred to me, God, I'm pretty sure I have the poster folded up in a drawer for this movie. Let me go look and see if it's actually there like I think it is, and it turned out to be the case. So I was like, oh cool, I can obviously hang that in the background as I talk about the movie and stuff. So I guess that pretty much does it for this movie / Blu-ray review. As always, I probably went on a little longer than I intended, but I guess that'll happen when you're a huge movie fanatic. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, we'll catch you on the next video. Mein Hurt schwimms in Blut. I don't know. It's better in my mind than it is when I do it out loud. One thing I don't want to forget to mention is the absolutely, first off the bat when the movie starts, one of the things you're most aware of first is the absolutely phenomenal score by... I think it's right back here. Oh, okay, it's right there.